Hello, I'm Tim Smith with the Adams County Historical Society, and welcome to another Monuments Monday on a beautiful fall day. Now, today we're going to talk about the monument to the 5th New Hampshire Infantry. And oh, by the way, if you like the content we put on our YouTube channel, please hit the like and subscribe to our channel. The 5th New Hampshire Infantry is part of Cross's Brigade, which of course is part of John Caldwell's division of the 2nd Army Corps. Colonel Edward Cross had been the colonel of the 5th New Hampshire since early in its inception. And he had been through a number of battles. So Colonel Cross had been the colonel of the unit since early in the war, and he was in temporary command of the brigade at Gettysburg, and he was about to be promoted to brigadier general by Winfield. Scott Hancock was pushing him for a promotion. And there's a great story about Colonel Cross, and it's told by virtually every battlefield guide, and I don't even know when I first heard it, but it was one of those stories that you hear early on when you're learning about the battle. But Colonel Cross had been wounded in his life 12 previous times before this battle. He was wounded several times at the Battle of Fredericksburg, and he had fought in the Mexican War, and was out in Texas before the war. So Colonel Cross, when General Hancock told him that he was being promoted to general after this battle, Colonel Cross supposedly told Hancock, "No, this will be my last battle." And I remember in some versions of the story, probably battlefield guide versions, Cross always wore red bandana into battle because he sweated a lot, and he took the red bandana off and put a black bandana on. And much is made of Cross's premonition of his death here. But when you read the letters of Colonel Cross and you read the regimental history of the 5th New Hampshire, I tend to think that it appears to me he has a premonition before every battle. And of course, probably with good reason, he's wounded in every battle. Well, here at Gettysburg, he received his 13th wound. He was shot in the abdomen. He was mortally wounded. And the regimental monument is on the spot where he's wounded. A few things about the monument. It was dedicated on July 2nd, 1886. There's a great rendition of the dedication ceremony in the regimental history of the 5th New Hampshire. The monument is made out of boulders taken from different places on the Gettysburg battlefield. So there are 5 large round boulders. And of course, that's nicknamed Gettysburg granite. In the middle is, of course, New Hampshire granite. And the monument is put together to resemble the corps insignia of the 2nd Corps, the clover or the trifoil you see there. So when you look at a distance, you can see the boulders form kind of their regiment or their corps insignia. Now, also, I want to point out, when we look at early photographs of the monument after its dedication, these bronze plaques are not on the monument. There was actually, the inscription was actually into the granite itself. And here on this particular plaque, just to the right where it says 5NH, you can actually see behind the bronze plaque some of the writing carved into the actual stone. I believe these bronze plaques were placed on here around the center of the monument in 1901. And one account says they were done because it was hard to read the inscriptions on the stone. I don't know if I buy that, but clearly when you look at the inscription placed on the stone and look at the plaque, there's slightly different information. So I think they wanted to correct their totals that they gave for their losses, and they did it that way. And there must have been some other mistakes around the backside of the monument they wanted to adjust, so they did. I tend to think they should have left this plaque off because the thing that's under it looks a lot better than that. Another interesting thing about this monument, it was, like I said, dedicated in 1886. A year earlier, in 1885, a committee of this regiment had come to Gettysburg to mark the spot where Colonel Edward Cross was killed, and they did it originally with a stone that was inscribed with that fact. And here we're showing you a photograph of that stone, again, which I believe, according to my reading of it, was placed here in 1885, a year prior to the dedication of the monument. And I remember that a book had come out on the 5th New Hampshire called something like My Brave Boys, and they included that photograph in that book, and that is the first time I had ever seen it. And we were downtown in the bookstore when somebody showed me the book, and I saw it with that photograph, and Gary was with me, and I said, Gary, because Gary and I, Gary Edelman, hung out on the battlefield for years, and we tried to memorize every single rock on the battlefield. And I said, Gary, I think that monument in that photograph is still here on the battlefield somewhere. I think I've seen it. And sure enough, I brought him out here. We walked down this path over here, and there was a rock laying beside the path. I had noticed it earlier because it had grooves in the stone where somebody had chiseled it, which I thought was unusual. It's actually turned over. I examined the photograph once again today, and sure enough, the place where the inscription is the place the stone is resting on. So I don't know if I have the manly strength to push it back over, but it needs to be turned over backwards one more time. But it's laying right over there. And sure enough, this was the original rock that was placed here as a monument to mark the spot where Colonel Edward Cross had fallen. Theoretically, it was right here. But, you know, it's just another one of those discoveries that we made early in our, you know, guiding career, I guess you'd say, as licensed battlefield guides. One interesting thing, the inscription, I believe, is painted on the rock. And we'll never know, unless we discover photographs, how many painted descriptions exist on rocks around the battlefield at one time. But here's another story I want to tell you about a rock that has some notability when we talk about the battle. Notoriety, how about? So as long as I can remember, another story that had been floating around with the 5th New Hampshire Infantry concerned the death of Colonel Cross. And the story, and I have seen it in an early source, was that a soldier, I believe they say from Arkansas, was hiding behind this particular rock. According to one early account, that rock is at the current southwest corner of the modern intersection. And of course, when that was written, they had put in Sickles Avenue and of course Cross Avenue here. So we're at the southwest corner of the intersection. And this is the only huge rock in this immediate vicinity. So we always had this story about this rock. And I believe the story continues that after the Confederates behind this rock fired a shot that killed Colonel Cross, and you can actually see the monument to Colonel Cross up there, or to the 5th New Hampshire, that then the 5th New Hampshire charged out around this rock and killed the man that killed Colonel Cross. But I discovered at the Adams County Historical Society a rare copy of an 1895 tour book of the battlefield, Laney's photographic tour of the battlefield. And in that tour book, there's a photograph of this rock we're going to show right now. And in the photograph, you can actually see this rock, and you can actually see the monument in the distance, and you just beyond the do not enter sign, and you can see they painted on the rock that this was the rock from where Cross was killed. Here we are now on an undisclosed location at the Gettysburg National Military Park. And we're not going to tell you exactly where we are, but this has always been one of my favorite monuments on the entire Gettysburg battlefield. And here we'll provide an 1898 William Tipton image of this marker. And I love this marker because it is the left flank of the 5th New Hampshire Volunteer Infantry. This marker is the left flank of Colonel Edward Cross's brigade. This marker is the left flank of John Caldwell's division. And this marker is the left flank of the 2nd Army Corps of the Army of Northern Virginia. So this is a very important spot to stand on the Gettysburg National Military Park, and we challenge you to find this location.